I'm glad you could join us tonight, for tonight is a very special night. Tonight is the night of the vampire! Feeling strong enough to stand against the deadly vampire, huh? I guess we will not know until the morning light.
Hello everyone and welcome to my channel RPG Retro Reviews. I'm Captain Courageous and I review old school modules and games and try to give them a fun and informative analysis. This week I'm turning the Wayback Machine to 1994 as I review one of TSR's audio CD modules called Night of the Vampire. Now, I've already reviewed 3 of these audio CD releases from TSR, the introductory box set First Quest, Kingdom of Karamakos, and the well-done adventure module Hail the Heroes. Hail the Heroes and Night of the Vampire were both released just a few weeks apart, with Hail the Heroes being released first. In the mid to late 90s, game designer Richard Baker worked on quite a few of TSR's product lines, such as the Rock of Brawl for the Spelljammer line, as well as material for the Forgotten Realms, Planescape, and Ravenloft. Alongside Colin McComb, Baker co-designed the Birthright campaign setting, which won a 1995 Origins Award for Best New Role-Playing Supplement. Baker also oversaw the development of the Player's Option series for the second edition of the AD&D game. Of course, Baker worked extensively with the 3rd and 4th edition of the Dungeons & Dragons game and numerous adventures and sourcebooks. Needless to say, Richard Baker is a seasoned RPG author, and his work on this adventure finds an interesting place in TSR history, and in fact, the sheer volume of trivia associated with this adventure module in many ways eclipses the actual adventure itself. But before I get into all of that, let me take a moment to thank Dark Wizards Games for sponsoring this video. Dark Wizard Games' latest Kickstarter is offering this outstanding fantasy game accessory, the Dungeon Demon Fantasy Folder. Super sturdy and high quality with a velvety smooth soft touch laminate that gives this folder a tough protective finish. Check out this beautiful full color art by Justin Davis. You get 3 folders for only $15. What are you waiting for? A link to the Dark Wizard Games Kickstarter is in the description. The CD audio portion of this adventure was recorded by the TSR West Department, created around 1989 and run by Flint Dilley, the brother of TSR's latter-day president, Lorraine Williams. In fact, it was Dilley who introduced Gary Gygax to Lorraine Williams at Gygax's request, as at the time, TSR was in financial trouble and Gygax was seeking someone with business management qualifications. Dilley had met Gygax in the early 80s when Gygax was in Hollywood trying to get a D&D movie started, and in fact it seems that they collaborated on a Dungeons & Dragons movie script that, of course, never got made. Dilley's own work is impressive, working on the production team for popular 80s animations such as the Transformers, G.I. Joe, Inhumanoids, and Visionaries, among many other projects. Of course, Dilley is the grandson of John F. Dilley, publisher of the original Buck Rogers comic strip that is part of the Dilley Family Trust. Later, Dilley would also work on the Buck Rogers RPG for TSR. So, with all of that background out of the way on the creative team that worked on this module, one would expect that this would be quite the classic adventure. But unfortunately, TSR politics would once more hamper the production of what should have been a phenomenal product. It seems the Wisconsin TSR offices where the adventure was written had almost no input on the California TSR officers' creation of the CDs. As Baker recounts, We weren't even supposed to write the scripts for these things, although in practice we created a sort of here's what needs to be in the script that the West Coast office used or didn't use as the mood took them. TSR West then did all the voice casting and production with no feedback or approval from the actual writer of the module. Thus, the results were often weirdly hilarious. For example, in the scene where the PCs captured some assassins and were threatening them, Baker suggested the PCs say, "Tell us who hired you or we'll put your head on a pole." Instead, TSR West release has one of the PCs say, "Tell us who hired you," and another PC shouts, "Get a pole!" As I said when I reviewed Hail the Heroes, I praised the audio CD work there as it seemed to find a good balance with providing interesting audio clips and voice acting, and even nice NPC characterizations without impinging on player character agency by putting words in the character's mouth. Unfortunately, Night of the Vampire strangely reverts back to that practice from the previous CDs from First Quest and Kingdom of Karamakos by having the actors speak for the PCs in the clip far too much, and that greatly takes away from the utility of the audio, and in fact it makes them more of a hindrance than a help to the adventure. The opening clip, the introduction, which I played as the teaser to this video, is supposed to be the first clip the DM plays for the players to set the mood as the vampire openly challenges the PCs, which as the adventure progresses, the PCs aren't even supposed to know that there's a vampire in the beginning stages of the adventure. With all of that said, the core adventure here is actually pretty good and with a decent mix of role-playing and action. Keep in mind, this is mid-90s post-Ravenloft and Dragonlance D&D, so there might be a bit too much role-playing for some people's tastes here. However, the core adventure that's presented could be a lot of fun and should provide about 2 sessions of enjoyable gaming. So let's get into the core of the adventure. The setup here has the PCs sailing across the coast of the Kingdom of Karamakos for some unnamed reason, encountering a storm and getting shipwrecked. Fortunately for them, their wreck is spotted by servants of the Vandeviks, a minor noble family in Karamakos, who offer to escort the PCs to the Lord's manor to render them aid. Part of the problem with this setup is that the player characters here are first-level beginning characters and have no notoriety. If the characters were a bit higher level, the DM could just have the PCs formally invited to the manor, as when they arrive, Gustav and Selena Vandevek just so happen to be celebrating the engagement of their niece, Lena, and Iaho Mumbutka. There's going to be a tournament, dinner, and a masquerade ball. How lucky the PCs just happened to drop in, eh? Let me take a moment to say that the audio CD does serve one main purpose here, and that is to help the Dungeon Master in the proper pronunciation of many of the NPCs' names. After the module B10 Night's Dark Terror, the Kingdom of Karamakos took on a distinctly Eastern European flavor, and the naming conventions in the adventure continue to adhere to that. After the PCs arrive at the manor, the lord of the place, Gustav Vandevek, invites them to stay overnight and wait out the storm. Here the module is a bit railroady. Going into the forest surrounding the manor has the PCs attacked by wolves.
Well, that was a stupid choice.
Outnumbered, yes. Outfought, never. Press on!
Is this wise?
Watch out!
Behind you, thief!
Please get my cloak! Help!
Militates amondelix, back foul beasts!
It is probably best if they just accept Lord Vandevek's invitation. In the morning, the PCs are awakened by a servant named Mustan, who presents them with a formal invitation to the festivities, which includes the aforementioned tournament, dinner, and a masquerade party. Mustan is available to answer any questions the PCs have at this point, such as who lives here, who the guests are, and what exactly is going on. In my opinion, you can begin this adventure at any time after the PCs have accomplished something major that gets them a bit of renown and notoriety as heroes. Inviting a group of heroes to such an occasion is certainly the kind of thing that nobles are known to do for the prestige. Or perhaps one of the PCs has a distant relationship with the Van de Vicks. The house is remote enough that the PCs need to travel and arrive the day before, and on the way a storm sets in. I mean, if you can't leave because of the wolves, how does any of the guests even get there? This sort of integration alleviates some of the clumsy incongruity with the plot and allows the PCs to perhaps have encounters with some of the NPCs prior to the module's start, providing some much-needed verisimilitude, such as the arrogant Lord Strelokka, whose martial prowess is well known, as well as his foul disposition. Perhaps there's already a rivalry with one of the PCs beforehand. In addition, there's Lady Konstantino Brezovo, whose brother was killed by Lord Strelokka in a duel. She intends to kill the Lord during the masquerade party. Then there's Lord Vasil Orusko. Orusko is a Tralladarian, and his family once owned the lands that the Van de Vick Manor now occupies. Gustav Van de Vick's family came into possession of these lands after Tralladar was conquered by the Theatians hundreds of years ago, and he plans to murder Lord Van de Vick during the masquerade party and reclaim his ancestral lands. Finally, there is, of course, Andrew Van de Vick, the handsome young lord, who in reality is the very same Andrew Van de Vick of ancestral legend, the original lord of the manor. Decades ago, he was turned into one of the undead, and the horrific murders that he and his mate perpetrated caused an uprising in the village, and the lord had to flee or face the stake. Now a powerful immortal vampire, he has recently returned to the manor about a month prior, having heard of the celebration at his former manor. When Andrew fled the manor, ownership passed to distant cousins, and upon his return he has taken on the identity of a long-lost, probably illegitimate relative. He also became enamored with Gustav's lovely niece Lena and seeks to make her his bride. Of course, her betrothal to Iyahu Mabutka puts a bit of a crimp in his plans. The vampire will claim the young woman as his own on the night of the masquerade and kill any that get in the way of his evil schemes. Needless to say, the night of the masquerade is shaping up to be quite the party. Now, after their introduction to the servant Mustan, the PCs are free to wander about the manor and explore a bit. The poster-sized map that is provided with the adventure is colorful and interesting, and when laid out on the table certainly provides a bit of spectacle. Unfortunately, it also boldly says Night of the Vampire right on the upper left-hand corner, completely spoiling any possible chance at surprise as to who the real antagonist is in this adventure. That being said, the PDF to this adventure is available at DriveThru RPG, and the scan is excellent. You can chop the poster map up with any kind of paint program and make your own handouts, excluding the Night of the Vampire verbiage, which unfortunately is printed on every single handout that's to be given to the players. Speaking of handouts, in addition to the poster map, the adventure includes 4 parchment paper handouts that were kind of a staple of these CD audio adventures. They are very well done and look great, but annoyingly, the title of the module is again on the lower left-hand corner of them. I used my paint program, and as you can see here, I was able to very cleanly remove the module information from the handouts. These really turned out great. I used a matte photo paper for these, and I'm looking forward to handing these out to my players. After the players have had a chance to explore the house a bit and meet the various NPCs, the module begins with Act 1, the tournament. Here the PCs can encounter and interact with several of the major NPCs of the module. If the PCs have had previous dealings with Lord Strelokka, then they may need very little prompting to engage with the arrogant lord at the tournament. In addition, Lady Constantina will do her very best to prompt a rivalry between the PCs and Strelocka, giving herself further cover as to exactly who the murderer is after she assassinates him during the masquerade party. If a PC does defeat Lord Strelocka at the tournament, he will of course accuse the PCs of cheating and later issue a formal challenge for a duel and send it to the PC, further cementing a personal vendetta against the arrogant lord. Lady Selena Van de Veck will invite everyone to tea after the tournament in the Manor's greenhouse. It's here that the PCs can learn about the Van de Veck's problem with Lord Orusco from Lady Constantina.
You appear ill at ease here, cleric.
Our adventures leave us but scant time for social graces.
I suppose a festive tea is so much child's play to heroes such as you who have experienced the real wonders and terrors of the world. Yet more goes on here than meets the eye. Do you see that man standing over there?
Aye, that stocky black-haired fella.
Lord Rusco. The Van de Veck lands originally belonged to his family, until Lord Van de Veck's great-grandfather claimed his title. It's said Rusco wants King Stefan to restore the Van de Veck lands to him upon Gustav's day.
Aye.
Oh, there are other guests I must speak with. May I excuse myself?
But of course.
Also, during this time, Lord Mabutka arrives with his son Iaho. The Lord is not the most pleasant of a fellow.
Hello! Who goes there?
Not Mobotka.
Lord Mubatka? You're pale as marble. Are you well?
Stand aside, lout. Inside, Iago, and quickly. This weather chills my bones.
Yes, Father. You there! Lend a hand with our luggage, you louts!
The VCs can also meet with Lord Van de Veck himself in his library and perhaps learn about the Van de Veck's family history.
Enjoying the festivities?
Yes, very much. You are a gracious host, Lord Van de Veck.
Ah, please. In the privacy of my own home, simply call me Lord Gustav.
Yes. Impressive collection, my lord.
Ah, my library. My most valuable possession. My forefathers were illustrious knights and warriors. I am but a lowly scholar.
What's this?
Do not touch that book.
Sorry.
I don't like strangers handling it. It is the history of the Van de Veck family. A history with chapters best left unread. If you want to hear it, you must swear not to reveal what I tell you to anyone.
I don't particularly care for Gustav's willingness to divulge family secrets to relatively complete strangers. It's a plot contrivance. Running this without the CD, you can omit that completely and allow him to divulge that information when it makes sense to do so later on in Act 4. If the PCs visit the ballroom where the masquerade party will take place later that evening, they will discover that Lord Orusco is speaking quietly with several of the minstrels.
It seems our host is preparing a very impressive celebration.
Aye, look at all that food.
Say, who's that over there by the musicians?
Lord Orozco, a petty noble of the court. Odd. I thought there was bad blood between him and Van de Veck.
I wonder what he's saying.
Shall I move closer and take a listen?
As you can plainly hear in this track, the actors are stealing way too much agency from the players, and of course it is possible for a PC to try and sneak closer to hear what's being said, in which case they can overhear this.
Horses waiting in the town. Remember, take anything you can. You must pretend to be robbers.
You still owe us 200 pieces of gold, my lord.
You shall have it once the deed is done.
The thief approaches. Of course, my lord. We know the melody well. We will be delighted to play it for you and the lovely lady. When shall we perform?
If Lord Strelokka challenged one of the PCs to a duel, that this takes place right before dinner begins.
You showed up after all. I was beginning to think that you were a coward as well as a cheating dog.
I didn't pick this fight, but I will end it!
On guard! Where is your power now,
The fight is with no armor and a single one-handed weapon, and magic is forbidden. Lord Strelokka is quite the arrogant jerk, and kicking his butt will be very enjoyable if the PC can manage it, which shouldn't be too hard as he's only a first-level fighter with 7 hit points in the module. When he's wounded, he gets a sneak attack at +2.
You're beaten, Strelokka. Yield!
I will not yield to a peasant dog.
Our duel ends only when you yield or die. Consider your options carefully.
Very well. I guess I must.
Look out! He hides a blade!
Die! Some honor! And you call me a cheat! This is war!
This is a good opportunity to use the non-lethal damage rules in 2nd edition AD&D. Striking with a bludgeoning weapon or the flat of a blade inflicts 50% normal damage, and 50% of that is temporary. Also, there is a -4 attack penalty when fighting non-lethally. So even though they are fighting without armor, dexterity bonuses for defense as well as strength bonuses to attack and damage could give a PC fighter a bit of an edge here. If things seem a bit one-sided, I'd bump up Lord Strelokka's hit points or give him a few extra bonuses to attack to make things more interesting. Of course, once hit points reach 0, the fight is over. If Strelokka loses, he'll hurl insults, something along the lines of, "I yield, you dog." And if Strelokka wins, he's less than gracious about it.
Oh no!
What's this? The warrior has fallen!
Chew on that, you cowardly dog!
I yield.
The warrior has yielded to you, Lord Strelokka. Hold your sword. There's no need to kill him.
This dog's life is mine if I wish to take it.
It's poor form to slaughter a man who surrendered, my lord.
Aye, you've beaten him already. Take his life and you'll have another duel to fight.
Very well. Don't say I am without mercy.
He kicked him. How could you kick him? The man is down already. Get away. Move back.
Count yourself lucky I held my hand today, you sniveling coward. Next time, I won't be so lenient.
Either way, the PCs should really end up hating this guy. Lady Constantina should be on hand here, obviously interested in the outcome. She will come to aid an injured PC. This should be a fun time to perhaps introduce a bit of romantic tension if applicable. At this point, a servant comes out and announces that dinner is served, and Act 1 comes to a close. Act 2 is the dinner. This entire affair is strictly role-playing with little action and can be a lot of fun as the PCs get a good feel for the various tensions and plots that may be in play. If you've been able to conceal the name of this adventure to this point, with all the red herrings that abound in this module, the actual horror of an impending vampire attack may not be readily apparent. Trying to figure out Lord Oruzco's plot and perhaps some romantic interest in Lady Constantina might be all that the PCs are currently considering. The actual reason for the celebration, Lena's engagement to Iahu, is clearly only a MacGuffin to get the PCs to the mansion. Or is it? The other distraction here is to play up Lord Mabutka himself, who is an irascible and cantankerous old man, not at all pleased with his son's engagement, and he isn't exactly subtle in his displeasure. The PCs might notice that he doesn't touch his food before getting up and leaving the party.
Good evening, Lord Mabutka. Are you enjoying your visit?
Ah, what is there to enjoy? This food is atrocious.
Yes, well, you must be happy for your son anyway.
Ah, Yahu's a fool. I told him not to marry that wisp of a girl, Lena, but he wouldn't listen to me. He gained nothing with a tie to the Van de Vick name.
Don't mind my father. He speaks to everyone this way.
Silence, boy. I can make my own apologies when they're needed. And I owe nothing to anybody now. I shall retire to my chambers.
Mabutka is a great character. He seems irrationally irritable, but the fact is he knows of tales of bad blood with the Van de Vick name, and he loves his son, and this apparent irritability is how he expresses his displeasure over events he has no control over. When speaking with Lord Gustav, the PCs can learn a bit more about the Van de Vick's lost relative, Andrew Van de Vick, who is apparently an illegitimate descendant of the original Lord Andrew.
You set an excellent table, Lord Van de Vick.
It seems our shipwreck was quite fortunate. If we hadn't foundered, we would have missed your hospitality.
I am honored to be of service to you and your companions. I wonder where young Andrew is. He is quite a traveler himself. I would think that you and he would have a lot in common.
Andrew, your young cousin?
Yes, Andrew is the great-grandson of old Lord Van de Vick, the son of Lord Jan, founder of the house. We had heard that old Lord Andrew had children, perhaps illegitimately, but we thought the line had died out. When Cousin Andrew showed up on our doorstep about a month ago, it was quite a surprise for us.
Will he attend this party?
Andrew? He is very fond of hunting and riding and spends most of his days in the forest. Even the foulest weather doesn't keep him inside. Well, he'll be here when he can, I'm sure.
They can also speak with Iahu, who is honest, good-natured, if not a little dense, and this is a good time to actually introduce the rumors of the Van de Vick curse, which, in my opinion, the DM should downplay and not really mention until this point in the adventure.
You showed no small skill at the tournament today, warrior.
Adequate.
You seem like a strong fellow. Why didn't you participate?
My father advised against it. He advises against much, including my betrothal to Lena.
Oh, beautiful young lady.
You should feel lucky.
Father cares not for the Van de Vick family. He thinks the line is tainted by the old curse of the first Lord Andrew.
Curse?
What curse?
Aye.
It said Andrew Van de Vick became one of the undead.
Of course, if the DM has been savvy here and managed to keep the players ignorant of the fact that they're playing a module called Night of the Vampire, they might just chalk it up to yet another misdirection plot element the DM is throwing into the mix. Oruzco's plot to assassinate their host, Lord Gustav, Lady Constantina's hatred of Lord Strelocka, the irascible behavior of Lord Mabutka, and so on. The module does a pretty good job of throwing out a bunch of red herrings as to exactly what is going on. that if it weren't for the fact that Night of the Vampire is printed on everything, when the vampire finally does make his appearance, it might not be as big a surprise, but could be an exciting twist due to the structure of the masquerade ball, which I'll get to in a moment. At some point then, the PC should end up speaking to Lena Vandevik as well. Here they can get an idea of just how flighty the young woman is, as she expresses some interest in her long-lost cousin, Lord Andrew Vandevik.
Enjoying your meal, adventurers?
Oh,
Splendid.
It's excellent.
Your uncle sets a fine table.
I'm glad you are here to enjoy it. Your ordeal must have been terrifying.
It's what makes life worth living.
While me, I'm a coward through and through. I'm terrified about marrying Yaho, and I love him very much. But
Everyone has jitters about marriage, Lena.
Cousin Andrew wishes I'd wait a few more weeks before deciding to accept Yaho's proposal.
Perhaps he thinks he can win you away from young Lord Mubotka, my lady.
There's something special about Andrew. He's like no one I've ever met. And I must confess that I can't stop my thoughts from turning to him, even when he's not here. But I know I love Yaho, and nothing will stop me from marrying him.
This admission seems a bit quirky. It's very clumsily inserted here to further the plot. Another reason I'd avoid playing the audio CD for the players, but instead use the tracks as a guideline for the characterizations of the NPCs. Unless Lena is friends with one of the PCs, it seems unlikely that she so openly makes such an admission. Of course, Act 2 comes to a close with the arrival of Andrew Vandevik himself at the end of dinner.
To speak.
My friends, the hour we have waited for has come at last. Let us adjourn to the ballroom for our masquerade. If you please.
An excellent meal, eh, thief?
Aye. Let's get shipwrecked more often, warrior.
Look, someone's coming in.
Who is it?
Ah, good evening, my lords and ladies. Good evening, Lena.
Oh, Andrew, you missed dinner.
Not to worry. I'll find something later.
What kind of costume do you have, Andrew?
That would be telling, wouldn't it, Lena? You'll excuse me, please. I must retire to my chambers and dawn.
As you can hear by this track, the music is a bit ominous and too easily gives up the game of who Andrew Vandevik truly is. If the music doesn't give it away, Andrew also takes every opportunity to say, "Good evening," in that thick Eastern European accent as well. It's these little things, the disconnect between what the written module is presenting and the audio CD is giving away, that really diminishes what could really be a cool interactive idea. The execution with the audio CD over and over hinders what is essentially a fun adventure. Act 3 begins with the masquerade. This sort of thing can be a lot of fun to roleplay. I would suggest that if possible, the DM play appropriate background music. Something like Bach on a harpsichord would definitely set the appropriate tone. I was able to make my own backing track by adding party crowd chatter and then using several interesting pieces, and was able to make a 15-minute track. Also, this is a good chance to use Sirenscape if you have that application, Personally, I find Sirenscape to be a bit clumsy, especially when it comes to adding your own music to the application. It's not that hard to get your own collection of special effects and game music, which is easy to come by these days. Audacity is a free and powerful audio mixing tool, and if you'd like to see me make a video on how to use the Audacity program to make your own backing tracks and mixes for your games, let me know in the comments. Alright, moving on. So the module simply has Lord Gustav providing costumes for the PCs to wear during the masquerade, but the DM should surely let the players decide what kind of costumes their characters are wearing, which could be a lot of fun. Stress to the players that part of the fun of a masquerade ball like this is trying to guess who is who and see past their disguise. Of course, upon arrival at the party, the PCs can overhear other guests trying to guess who's who in what costume.
Oh, who's that vision in the white gown and swan mask?
Lena, I'd guess. Or perhaps Constantina.
Oh, no. That might be Constantina in the green gown. She's just the type to wear a cat mask.
Ah, look at the old codger, Lord Mabutka. He didn't even bother with a costume.
Perhaps he's not happy about this occasion.
During the masquerade, the PCs can meet with and encounter the principal NPCs of the adventure, notably Lady Constantina, who's dressed in an emerald gown with a cat mask that covers her entire face. She will flirt with one of the PCs.
Who's behind this mask, I wonder?
It'd be cheating if I revealed myself, my lady.
And you would never seek an unfair advantage in a contest, would you, warrior?
Well, it seems it's hard to hide this physique in a costume, eh?
Your stature gives you away. Few of Lord Vendivik's guests have such, broad shoulders or muscles like yours.
Oh, please don't encourage him, lady. He'll be posing the rest of the evening, his head becoming as swollen as his biceps.
Cleric!
And you must be Lady Constantina.
How could you know, thief?
Well, your own considerable charm and beauty could hardly be concealed behind a mere mask, my lady.
You silver-tongued flatterer. Well, I'd best be on my way before I blush through my mask. Ta-ta.
Andrew Van de Veck is dressed as a wandering minstrel, and he taunts the PCs with a rather cryptic riddle.
Friends, gather round, lend ear to my song.
What a dreadful thing.
Once there was a scarlet knave who kept the dead dragon in his cave.
Enough already!
Your costume intrigues me. I can see you're some sort of minstrel, but what kind?
Perhaps my riddles shall provide you with a clue, wizard. I sleep beneath the ground and fall without a sound. Light a torch to see my face, and I'll vanish without a trace. What am I? Your answer.
Of course, the answer to his riddle is darkness. Clearly something's up with this guy, right? Lord Gustav will greet the PCs at some point wearing an owl mask and seek to make sure they are enjoying themselves, and they can also meet with Lena, who's wearing a lovely white gown with a swan mask. The young woman will ask one of the PCs to dance with her, and during the dance indicate her worries about Lord Orusco, and at some point Andrew cuts in on the dance.
Good evening, gentlemen. Would one of you honor me with a dance?
Why,
I don't think that would be wise, my lady, if you please. Warrior. Thank you.
Thief, she's not gonna fit in your kit bag, you know.
I'm glad my uncle invited you to stay. There are those at this ball who would see us come to harm. They may smile and say they're glad to be here, but I can see through them. It's no secret Lord Oroshko wants Van de Vixney returned to his family on Gustav's death. He doesn't think it should become part of Mubatka.
So you think he planned some mischief?
I don't know. And others object to my engagement to Yahoo. Cousin Andrew is...
Is jealous, milady?
Ah, Lord Andrew.
If you don't mind. But how could I not be? Iaho, Mabutka will take you away from us. Life would not be worth living here without you.
Okay, is this guy Andrew a creeper or what? One of the more interesting reveals during the masquerade is from the irascible Lord Mabutka, who has a warning for the PCs, revealing that while he's indeed an irritable old coot, he's also no fool.
You all look like idiots. In fact, everyone does.
That's part of the fun, Lord Mabutka.
Why, it doesn't hurt to make a fool of yourself every once in a while. You obviously speak from a great deal of experience.
If you find no entertainment at his ball, why attend?
Because I have enemies here who bear watching. Speaking of such, Vassal Urosco is up to something nefarious. I'm sure of it.
You think Lord Orozco plans dark deeds?
Your presence here is a fortunate accident. I think Orozco couldn't have known that you'd be here. I suggest you keep your eyes open and watch him closely. So, how do we know that you're not up to something, my lord? Don't be more of a fool than you can help, boy. Look around. Who stands to lose when the Van de Beek and Mubotka families are united?
I'm not sure, but I suspect you'll tell us.
Urosco will never regain his ancestral lands.
Yes, but...
I've said everything I need to say to you. Good night.
At some point, the PCs will run into Lady Constantina again, but this time, this is actually her servant Tanya impersonating the lady while Constantina moves to execute her plan of assassinating Lord Strelokka. The PCs will have an opportunity here to perhaps see through the disguise. Finally, things really heat up when the PCs actually meet up with Lord Orozco himself.
Good evening. How are our heroic guests tonight?
Lord Orozco, good evening.
You're not supposed to reveal yourself until midnight, my lord.
A silly rule, I think, especially now. I have an urgent matter that requires your attention, but I can't talk here or now.
Then where and when?
10 minutes, upstairs parlor. Believe me, you will find it to be worth your while.
If the PCs take up Orozco's offer and meet him at the parlor on the second floor, which, if you look at the map, is in a remote part of the house, quite a distance away from the ballroom, they will find themselves attacked by assassins. If they can take one of them alive, the assassin will confess Orozco's plan, which should send the PCs scurrying back to the ballroom to save Lord Gustav. Now, this is the point of the module where all hell breaks loose. Unfortunately, the staging here is a bit unclear in the module as to where exactly Lord Gustav and Lady Selina are. It's at this point the minstrels excuse themselves to take a break and move to kill Lord Gustav and his wife. If you look at the map, the ballroom is flanked by the garden and the study. You might have Gustav move with his wife, Lady Selina, to either of these locales to take a moment alone and get a break from the party and the chores of a host. And that's when the assassins strike. After the encounter with Orozco's assassins in the parlor, the PC should rush back to the ballroom, and that's when they'll hear Gustav scream, arriving to discover that Gustav's guards have been killed and he and Selina are under attack. Meanwhile, Orozco himself has headed to the stables to board his coach and make his escape. After the fight with the minstrel assassins, with the PCs victorious of course, they might attempt to capture the fleeing lord. The PCs make their way outside to intercept Orozco. The manor gate is closed and the coach has to stop to open it, which is just the opportunity the PCs need to catch up. Orozco is, however, protected by 6 of his guards. Another fight is sure to ensue. Orozco either flees, is captured, or killed. The PCs return to the ballroom where everything is in total chaos. It's at this point that Andrew attacks Lena in the banquet hall, and her screams reverberate loudly through the ballroom.
I can't believe Orozco came to this celebration planning murder.
Some way to repay a host hospitality, isn't it?
Aye, let's leave it first light, regardless of the weather.
Help me! Help!
That sounded like Lena.
In the dining room, hurry!
Hey!
Look at her!
Poor Lena.
Oh, Lena.
Who'd want to hurt her?
Look at her neck. Something's bitter.
Cleric.
Yes. She still lives. She's lost a lot of blood, though. We must tend her immediately.
Lena! Oh, Lena! Wizard, what happened?
Lord Gustav, unless I am very wrong, there is a vampire among us.
We should flee.
No! It cannot be.
Observe her injury, my lord. The fang marks, the loss of blood. What else could it be?
Then one of us is not what he or she seems to be.
I think she will live. She needs rest and must be watched carefully. Thief, help me put her to bed.
Lord Vendivik, until we find out who did this, we are all in grave danger.
Guards! Gather all the guests in the ballroom immediately!
Don't let your men get separated, my lord.
It would be best if nobody stays alone for the rest of the night.
After Gustav gathers everyone in the ballroom, it might be rather obvious that Lord Babutka's son Iahu, Lady Constantina, Lord Storoka, and Andrew Vandevek are not present. The module then moves on to Act 4, Night of the Vampire. It's at this point things really get complicated for the DM, with many NPCs on the move throughout the manor, and the vampire Andrew goes on a murder spree. If the PCs seek out Storoka, they can find him murdered with enough clues that probably give them reason to suspect Lady Constantina. This could be a rather emotional encounter, especially if the DM has played up the romantic aspect with one of the PCs. Given her history with the Lord and the PC's own encounters with him, they might be inclined to just let her leave, whereas lawful characters might insist she face justice for the murder. Of course, while all of that is going on, Andrew has already killed Iahu and will move to completely drain Lena and bring her over as one of the undead. There is a handout that the PCs can receive from Lord Gustav coming from his massive library, going over the weaknesses of a vampire, and the PCs may seek to try and find Andrew's coffin. During this search, the PCs will encounter one of Gustav's servants, Yanyevo, who has been charmed by the vampire, and he will seem to indicate that there's a large chest of suitable size in the attic.
Hold! Who's there?
Yanyevo, I'm glad that I found you.
What do you want?
I know where the vampire's lair is.
Where? Is it?
How did you find this out, John Nevo?
2 days ago, when I was in the attic looking for chairs for the banquet, I found a huge black trunk with brass hinges buried back among the other boxes and chairs. It wasn't there 2 months ago. I tried to open it, but couldn't. I found some dark, wet dirt on the ground around the trunk, but I didn't think anything of it.
But now you think the vampire may be using the trunk as its coffin.
It's big enough, wizard. Should I take you there?
If the PCs fall for Yanyevo's ruse, they will not find a trunk in the attic, but will be attacked by the charmed servant and some giant bats. Other encounters the PCs can have during the search: if they seek out Lena, they will discover that she has been converted to one of the undead and is now Andrew's minion. There is also the possibility of attacking the vampire directly, but given that Andrew is an 8 hit die creature, this would be a very bad move for the first level PCs. Lord Gustav does have a magical +2 sword, which the PCs will need before even considering confronting the vampire, so the DM will need to be careful about when such a confrontation takes place. During the night, the vampire stalks the manor house, slaying and killing the servants and guests alike. These guests might attempt to flee, but now they are attacked and killed by Andrew's wolf pack in the surrounding forest. Certainly it makes sense to introduce the wolves now. Finally, in the morning, after a night of terror and tragedy, a talk with the servant Mustan, ultimately provides the clue the PCs need to discover where Andrew's coffin is.
Good morning, my lords.
Good morning, Mustan. Are you all right?
For the most part, yes. On Lord Vendivik's orders, I am sending all of the servants to the village.
But you are staying?
Yes, cleric. I cannot leave Lord Vendivik now.
We'll see if we can take care of that vampire first. With the sun out, he's helpless. All we have to do is find him.
Do you have any idea where Lord Andrew might have made his lair?
It would have to be somewhere nearby. Perhaps on the manor grounds or in the woods or... I remember. Once, in the wine cellars, I saw Lord Andrew standing in the doorway. It was just before dawn.
Of course, there's a secret passage in the wine cellar, and it's here that the final confrontation with the vampire can take place.
I think I found something, wizard. Listen. It's hollow. I think it's a secret room. Look for a latch or lever or something.
Like this one?
Be wary, friends. The vampire will be slow to wake with the sun in the sky, but he will not be defenseless.
There's a passage here.
Hand me a torch.
Yes, this is it. Fire! There's a chamber in here with a stone sepulchre.
Move swiftly, my friends. We may not have much time.
Watch out! Rats!
I hate rats.
The map shows a short passage that leads to a stone sarcophagus. The module gives the PCs one free round of attacks against the vampire before he awakens to defend himself.
Watch out, thief! Andrew's waking!
I can't hold him!
Take him, cleric!
Keep hammering! Stake him through the heart!
That's it then.
Of course, the level of tragedy here can vary greatly depending on the actions the PCs take. Though, as the module is set up for first level characters, there's no doubt that a lot of people will be killed during the adventure, most notably the two people for whom the entire thing was about, Yahoo Mabutka and Lena Vandevek. The irritable Lord Mabutka will be much diminished and suitably devastated, departing tragically in the morning to bury his dead son. Lord Gustav will be grateful to the PCs and thank them for their help and service regardless of how tragic the events of the previous night were.
Thank you for helping us, heroes. It took great courage to face the creature in its den today.
It was an honor, Lord Vandevik.
What will you do now?
Many people died here last night. In time, the manor and its lands will be restored. Even if I do not live to see it. You see, my title will die with me. But what happens to me is of no importance. I would like to give you something, some type of reward for the help you have given us. It is not much, but please, take these jewels. I would like to think that you are leaving here better off than when you arrived.
The haunting and outstanding cover art for this module is by game designer Janelle Jacques, and the interior artwork is by Dan Fraser. The cartography is by David C. Sutherland III. Getting a completed copy of this module with the CD on eBay really varies in price between $20 to $70 or more. The PDF scan for this module is really quite good and is only $4.99 at DriveThruRPG. The module is 39 pages and could easily be printed out. The 4 handouts for the module are included, as well as a full-size scan of the poster. Since you really don't need the audio CD to play this adventure, and you would probably want to make your own printout of the house minus the Night of the Vampire heading, you really don't need the poster either. So let's go ahead and take a look at the audio CD adventure from TSR's Night of the Vampire on my D20 scale of style, presentation, and value. The style of this module was really quite good. The pages are of a nice, thick matte finish, and the artwork here is serviceable. I'm not a big fan of Dan Fraser's black and white color mix here, but you could definitely print these out and use them during play. I'm not a fan of the poster map. As I said, it too easily gives away the plot of the adventure. If you're trying to conceal the fact that a vampire is the actual big bad monster here, it's more a hindrance than an aid. Overall, however, this looks good and is sturdy enough to last for years. I'll rate this a 16. Now, let's talk presentation. Organizationally, the module is laid out very well. The various sections flow from act to act logically. There are sidebars to help keep track of the various NPCs and a nice little timeline of events to help the DM manage the flow of the adventure. There are a lot of NPCs to keep track of, and the red herring plots are very interesting in and of themselves, as are the NPCs. This is very much a character and event-driven story, and if the DM can get the characterizations of the NPCs down, this could be a lot of fun. However, I do not think this is something that a new DM should run. There is just a lot of pacing and flow issues to manage, characters to run, and that's not even counting all the things that the players could throw into the mix to change things up. The audio CD is the real tragedy here. It could have been so good. Provide some appropriate background music for the various scenes of the adventure, provide some interesting character voices, and I really don't think the voice acting here is horrid. Lady Constantina's actress is actually pretty good. What ruins it is that too often the track's giving too much away, and of course the fact that too much agency is taken away from the players. It can leave them with so little to do but to follow the script as written from encounter to encounter. This is also a roleplay heavy adventure, and many groups simply will not enjoy such a thing. As for me, an invitation to celebrate the joining of two noble houses, multiple assassination plots, a vampire adversary, and the tragic end of two young lovers could make for a fun night of gaming. However, to get that sort of thing out of this module, the DM is really going to have to do a lot of extra work here. Listening to the audio CD tracks but not actually using them during play helps with learning name pronunciation and aids in how the various NPCs might behave and talk. My main suggestion here would be to introduce this to higher level PCs, say 3rd or 4th level. I just think that given the number of combats in Act 3 and 4 versus assassins, Orusco's guards, and the vampire himself, springing this on 1st level characters is a bit too much. I also think that the vampire's secret lair is ripe for expansion by the DM, especially if you spring this on higher level PCs, adding a complete secret crypt level, where Andrew's minions lie in wait protecting their master's coffin would make for a more exciting and horrific conclusion. The DM could have quite a few of the manor's servants and guests from the party here as well, either charmed or converted into low-level undead vampire minions, all before the final confrontation with the vampire himself. So with all that said, I'm going to rate this an 11. Finally, let's talk value. The PDF is only $5. The Manor House maps alone make owning it worthwhile. If you pick up the boxed set for $20 complete, that would be a great deal as well. But if you have access to a high quality printer, you can make your own map and your own handouts. These are the ones that I printed out, and as you can see, they turned out great, and nothing says Night of the Vampire on it. So with all of that said, I'll rate this a 17 for value. And that brings my overall rating for Night of the Vampire to a 44. Good. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found this 20,000K subscriber special video enjoyable and engaging. And I'd like to thank all my supporters who make this channel possible. Please give this video a like, comment, and share. check out my Teespring store for great gaming swag, t-shirts, carry bags, coffee cups, and more. Join the channel's Facebook page, RPG Retro Reviews. Consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron yourself, or alternatively, you can send a tip through the PayPal tip jar. A link is in the description. And as always, my friends, may your D20 roll true and game on.